Very good evening to all. My name is Hemdeep Padalya, and I, on the behalf of Alumni Committee and IIM Lucknow family, welcome everyone to the inaugural season of Netrtv Leadership Talk Series with our Alumni Leaders in Spotlight. It is my utmost pleasure and honor to welcome our speaker, Professor Rajdeep Grewal, the Townsend Family Distinguished Professor of Marketing and Area Chair of Marketing at UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School. Professor Rajdeep is an alumnus of IIM Lucknow's batch of 1994. After completing MBA, he pursued PhD in marketing with a minor in econometrics from the University of Cincinnati, where he also earned a Master's of Science in Business Administration in quantitative analysis. His areas of study include social interactions among organizations and strategic marketing decisions. An award-winning researcher, his work has appeared in top academic journals, including the Journal of Marketing, Journal of Marketing Research, Marketing Science and Strategic Management Journal. And in 2020, Dr. Grewal received the Shade Foundation Journal of Marketing Award for his paper, The Chief Marketing Officer Matters. The award honors the article published in the Journal of Marketing that has made the most important long-term contribution to the field of marketing. Dr. Grewal previously served on the field of Pennsylvania State University's Smeal College of Business Administration, where he was Associate Director of the Institute for the Study of Business Markets. He has also taught at Indian School of Business, both at Hyderabad and Mohali campus, Washington State University, Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and University of Cincinnati. And before joining IIM Lucknow, Professor Rajdeep worked as a sales executive at Pertec Computers, and he holds a bachelor's degree in textile technology from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. A warm welcome to you, sir, and it is our pleasure to talk to you today, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you, and that is the longest introduction I've ever had, so thank you.
Indeed, sir. For a person with such credentials like you, sir, it warrants, right, sir?
I don't know, but yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here. It's my privilege.
So, sir, I will start with the first question. What were your key learnings and takeaways from your life at IIM Lucknow?
Yeah, so my understanding is that I have not been to IIM Lucknow since '94, so it's been a long time. My understanding is very different now as a physical space than it used to be in 1994. I think it was still majorly under constructions, and I don't think the main building existed at that time. But I thought the education there was really top. I learned a lot in marketing. I learned a lot in operations research. Those were my two focus areas when I was there. In marketing, Professor Purwar used to be there, and then Yogesh Agarwal in operations research. I understand Professor Purwar is no more with us. So that was my main learning. My interest in marketing kind of developed at IIM Lucknow. I had a sales positions after IIT, like you mentioned earlier, and so I had some interest. I was looking towards a non-engineering type career, even getting out of IIT, and those research in sales then evolved into research in marketing, and I found the academic side to be more intriguing. I didn't understand what it was. This was before internet. Actually, 1994 is when internet came about. So the internet was just, so my application and all was before the world where you could get a lot more information than you can today. Like PhD students today really know what they're getting into. So I did not know what I was getting into, but I got into it really fast. I really enjoyed it. The process of research, the process of having autonomy in studying the problems you want to study, the way you want to study it, and how you want to schedule your day, how you want to basically work through your whole life. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. So that was the attractiveness of research and the flexible schedule that academic research offers were the main drivers there, essentially. So so I took away, because a lot of folks had PhD in IIM Lucknow that time, had done Professor Srivastava, Yogesh Agarwal, Purwar were all PhDs from the US. So that was kind of the main source of information that time, which was available. And I took those away and built on those to pursue a career in academics, actually.
That's interesting to know, sir. Sir, so as you already highlighted that you learned and got to know about PhD from the people around you, including professors. Maybe know regarding your own motivation, sir, to go for the and
Mhm.
then go for a career in academia.
Yeah.
Because even lucrative careers in industry do exist with PhD. So can you
Yep.
just please talk regarding that, sir?
So it depends on what attracts you or what motivates you. To me, the more fundamental problem motivated me. For example, like okay, how does the structure of competition evolve? How does it impact demand? How do firms respond to one another? How do firms interact? So those are more foundational questions as opposed to understanding those in a given industry or a given context. So you can be in auto industry or FMCG or some other industry, and you can go deeper and do it. And that's basically a job in the industry in some sense, where you are in one industry. And I've worked with, over time, I've worked with CEOs, I've worked with chief marketing officers in a consultant capacity, both paid and unpaid, for getting data for research. And uh, and they are interesting problems in that context, but it was the more abstraction of that problem which was more interesting to me. One of my recent papers on China looks at brand types, because the Chinese have different ways of naming brands, based on sound, based on the way they are written, and that's a more fundamental question that runs across industries at a more foundational level. Although we study it in the auto industry in China. Likewise, a similar team, I studied a question on the boycott that happened in China of Japanese automobiles in 2012, and how that impacted demand. Like, does it result in postponement of demand? Does it result in substitution? To what effect both effects will exist? Because durables have long consumption time, essentially. And this was again in the automobile industry, or durable industry. So it's a more foundational question. So if there's a more foundational question that interests you, then academics is a career for you. If it is the urge to go get things done and show that and that interests you, then industry is a career. So for me, it was the latter. In the US academics, once you're doing a PhD in marketing, vast majority of the folks actually go to academia. So we don't tend to go to industry that much, although there are examples of folks going to McKinsey and some other companies as well for after doing PhDs. But most of us follow an academic career, and it was the fundamental problem in research, and research was the primary attractiveness I had for pursuing an academic career, essentially. So for me, that was the main driving force, and it is still today, doing an academic career, because the research changes. Like you mentioned earlier, the data has changed. I finished my PhD in 1998. This was not a data-rich world. Collecting data and were good competitive advantages if you had certain data sets. Nowadays, there's plenty of data. We are in a data-rich but maybe an insight-poor world, and as a result of that, we the data is no longer a competitive advantage. You have to basically be able to get insights from the data. You have to be able to address important questions with the data that become important. So you have to evolve as a scholar. You have to evolve because techniques change. The way you approach research problem, they change. The research problem and the foundational research problems stay the same in some sense, but the rest of it changes. The data changes, so therefore your approach changes, and therefore the answers and the insights you can get become richer in some sense because the data becomes richer.
That's interesting to know, sir. Sir, we'd like to know more about your experience with research and consulting, because sir, you have taught at both Indian schools and schools in US. So, have you experienced some difference in culture, sir, in terms of teaching, working, research?
So that's a very broad brush question. Uh, so yeah, I think students are very similar. I think students who are selecting to get into business tend to be, so there's a self-selection here, right? You decided to come to do a business degree. Now, getting to IIM Lucknow was a little bit of your decision, a little bit of decision of IIM Lucknow to give you admission. So it's a two-way, it's a matching problem, they call it in academia. But at least you wanted to do business. So students who do business and come to top schools, let's say like UNC or ISB or IIM, tend to be very similar. They tend to have similar kind of talents. In India, you get a little bit more engineers. I think it continues to till date. That's my experience with IIM. In the US, the population is a lot more diverse in terms of their backgrounds. And in terms of their background, there are more folks from other countries. In UNC, there are plenty of folks from all over the world. Like the international student base is much larger than you will find in ISB or IIM per se. So there's more diversity. So in some sense, the teaching challenges are a little bit different because your certain skill sets are more heterogeneous versus more homogeneous. So those are the challenges that you have. But the students are bright on both sides. They're all business oriented, so they're taking business knowledge. The students tend to seek more contextual knowledge. So Indian students are more interested in the Indian market and how things might apply to the Indian market, and that's what they should be. The US students are more interested in the US market or markets maybe which are closely linked to US markets. US trade with China is really big, or Europe. So that is where their interests lie per se. So the interest in terms of what may be a little different, but the students are equally bright. Students are equally motivated. They have the drive there to succeed, to do well for themselves and hopefully the society. Yeah. So few of my papers are based on data sets which come from industry in some sense. So I tend to work with them to help them look at their data sets, to look at their problems in some sense. And nowadays, more and more, my work is more focused on CEOs. Even though I'm a marketing person, I feel that the customer focus should inform firm decisions. And it's very important to understand a customer focus is a very simple concept, but it's very hard to grasp, essentially. And the voice of the customer should be dictating what you do. But customer focus does not mean listening everything or doing everything that the customer tells you to do. So customer focus doesn't mean infinite customization for that example. Customer focus means deciding what is it that the customer wants that you can deliver with a competitive advantage, and then delivering it consistently in a measurable, repeatable manner. And that is essentially the work I do largely if I'm doing a consulting type project, to say basically to see how you can measure customer focus in a repeatable manner and how you can then have your strategy. I'm not talking simply marketing strategy. I'm talking your firm strategy, in fact, being informed by that customer focus there. And the customer focus is what essentially brings, if you want to, marketing to the fore table, because the marketing should be focused on the customer. But very often marketing or CMOs sometimes tend to focus more on short-term issues as opposed to long-term issues, or as opposed to strategic issues. They tend to focus more on tactical issues, and that marginalizes the marketing departments, where they should not be marginalized, because if they focus on the customer and they focus on the strategic decisions that come out of the customer. So I'll give you one example. I'll not take the CMO paper this time that you mentioned earlier on. I'll take a more recent paper of mine, which is on the cost of customer satisfaction, which came out in the Journal of Marketing last year. And that paper actually was a follow-up to that paper was carried by the Harvard Business Review. And the main appeal of that paper is that talks about that you can have, if you have satisfied customers, you actually have lower cost to serve them. So far the focus was on, oh, you have satisfied customer, they will come back more, they will buy more from you. So you will have a bump in your revenues, right? But you also get a discount in terms of your cost, because if you have satisfied customers, they don't complain. You don't have to answer their complaints. You can actually have a smaller customer service wing, a cheaper customer service wing, and still have high levels of satisfaction. And that's an important relationship from a CEO perspective. And as marketing folks and marketing managers, they rarely focus on cost. But this is an important lesson, because CEOs tend to focus on cost, and those costs, because if you have lower cost and you have higher revenue, you have a double bump. You're getting a double benefit that you're getting from your satisfied customers. You have higher margins. You have more profits, and profits is ultimately which you take home, which firms take home in some sense. So in that sense, it becomes better. It's also important for the society, because you have satisfied customers. They are happy, and they are not wasting their time into complaining and then doing these things, and they can do other things. So it works in all ways. It's a win-win kind of a setup in some sense. And that is what in my work, I try to emphasize to the CEOs in some sense. And if you have a CEO buy-in, then you can have a customer-based strategy, which is measurable, which is repeatable, which is verifiable, in the sense that you have data informing your strategy, and you're not making it on gut or anything of that. Because on gut you can be right, but it's just a question of time when you will be wrong. In that sense.
I think that that's an interesting insight, as you just said, that to have a satisfied customer, it will reduce the cost of the company. Usually, this may seem like a very logical insight, but not many CXOs would get it. That's interesting. Sir, can you tell us any difference in culture you observed between the US and Indian schools in terms of working with your peers, with administration, sir?
So my experience with Indian school is largely limited to Indian School of Business. So I haven't been to an IIM actually. So, and my interaction was in 1994 with IIM, and that too in a role as a student and not in a role as a faculty teaching there or interacting with staff. So Indian School of Business is mirrored after the US business schools. And their deans, for example, their outgoing dean, Raj Srivastava, is a co-author of mine. We published a paper in Marketing Letters a while back, and I have known him for all my academic life, actually. He's a senior of mine in academia. He was at UT Austin. He was at Emory University. So I've known him for a long while. He was in Singapore Management University when I went there. So and I taught in Singapore. So I've known him. So Indian School of Business tries to mirror the US system. So it's very similar in terms of culture, in terms of the way the classes are delivered, in terms of the way they are taught. So in that sense, I don't see a cultural difference there. I would be surprised if there is much of a cultural difference in IIMs as well. Now, there are some differences. For example, quantitative classes are more in demand in the Indian schools than in the US schools. But do they lead to some meaningful differences in careers as academics? Is at least it's not clear to me. I haven't really given that much thought. So, but at least that's not clear to me. But other than that, culturally, I find at least the Indian School of Business to be very much like a Western school. They strive for research like we do. They have faculty which tends to focus on research. I've worked with a faculty member there. I talked about Raj Srivastava. I worked with another faculty there, Manish Gangwar. And published a paper with him as well, which is on the Indian environment, which is on the celebrity culture in India and advertising actually. So yeah, I think at least for Indian School of Business, I can say that they tend to be very much like a US school, a US research-oriented school. Yeah.
That's interesting, sir. Now, sir, we would like to move on to your 2015 article, sir, The Chief Marketing Officer Matters. And I'm sure, sir, you would have been asked many questions regarding this. Sir, we would like to know one thing. In that you argued that CMO does contribute to, improving the firm's performance. Just wanted to know your thoughts again, sir. It's been 5-6 years since the article was written. Do you think the data or the findings you found then are still that much relevant today, or does CMO need to take up a distinct role, in order to improve firm's performance?
Yeah, so that's an interesting article because there was an article which predated that. I'm trying to recall 2007 or 8, which shows that it basically argued that CMO does not have an impact on firm performance. And we show that from an econometric perspective, they had certain challenges that they did not address. And if you address those challenges in a manner that we understand techniques, let's say in 2014, 2015, then you can show that the CMO actually matters, that the CMO has a positive effect on firm performance. Now, CMO there is a proxy for marketing in some sense. So in a way, the presence of CMO suggests that the marketing function is important for the firm. The absence of a CMO suggests that the marketing function may not be that important for the firm. So in some sense, that's a dummy variable, 0-1 variable, which is serving as a proxy for marketing. So in some sense, what the paper is showing that marketing matters, and if your marketing is prominent, then it would pay off. I don't see that fundamental finding changing. The way the marketing function is structured, the way the marketing is executed in a firm, and by marketing, I mean the role of the customer in informing your strategy. And by customer, I'm capturing both the decision maker and the user or the consumer. That is still foundational for the firm, and that will continue to be foundational for the firm. So you may have a marketing department, you may structure your marketing department digital marketing may be more important than, let's say, advertising, relatively speaking, in 2014 or 2015 compared to 2021. But the role of marketing, or the role of customer information in informing your strategic decisions, will continue and will continue to be valued by firms. So that is basically the foundational nature of the research that I was referring to earlier. The fundamental relationship would exist, but the way it is structured, the way it is executed may change over time. So I don't expect that fundamental relation to change. I don't expect that marketing may be less informed. There may be a company which does not have a marketing officer; they have a chief revenue officer, which are more growing in prominence now. But the chief revenue officer is in charge of revenues. And when does a firm get a revenue? Whenever the customer buys a product. There's no other source of revenue that the firm has in some sense. So the importance of customer, which I'm taking on to imply the importance of CMO, would continue, or the importance of marketing would continue. So I don't expect that fundamental relationship to change. In fact, it will just hold. The nature and the way firms execute, the way firms structure marketing departments, or have more diffused presence of marketing versus more kind of concentrated presence of marketing, a centralized versus a decentralized marketing presence, a no marketing presence in such a way to say that marketing is a CEO's role. All those things may change and may depend on different things, but the importance of customer insight and marketing will not change. Yeah, so the folks who are doing marketing at IIM Lucknow are good. They'll be safe. I think they need to basically stop worrying about some tactical decisions like, what should my ad say, what should my jingle be, and what should my promotion be, and focus on more strategic decisions, which is like, okay, how can I inform the strategy of the firm so that the customer is at the center of the strategy of the firm? So as long as they change that orientation to being more strategic, I think they'll be fine.
Yes, sir, sure. So that's reassuring to the market aspirants over at IIM Lucknow. Sir, moving on, I would like to ask one question regarding a point you made, that today having data is not having a competitive advantage in itself. It depends on how you leverage the data for a competitive advantage. Sir, would you like to give some advice to the future leaders regarding the same?
So I don't know what more to say other than that without getting more technical or more. So let me put it this way. So data is information in some sense, but data is not information. So data needs to be transformed into information, which needs to be transformed into knowledge to be beneficial for the firm. So that those transformations need to exist. Now, how do you go through those transformations is a tougher question. Getting data, with lot of data is available on online, on social media. Social media generates a lot of data. We have a big digital footprint as consumers. Firms have big digital presence and digital footprints, so there's a lot of data on that front. Firms are using customer relationship management and enterprise resource planning softwares, which collect a lot of data on customers, a lot of data which are internal to the firm, and which are generated on a real-time basis. Data on CRM can be generated on a day-to-day basis or a minute-to-minute basis. And there's no advantage to having day-to-day, minute-to-minute data unless you know how to use the data. And how to use the data is a very specialized answer. You have to look at that data set. You have to look at what data you have, and then you have to go about it. In fact, I'll go a step back. First, you have to decide what data you want to collect, right? Simply, the data that you have may not be the best data that you need. So you have to go a step back and design the data that you need to collect, design the data you need to gather, which informs the importance of designing data collection methods, whether this is a survey, whether this is data you're going to record on your CRM on a longitudinal basis. So you have to basically go and design the data that you want to have. And once you have the data, then you have to say, okay, how do I make this into information and knowledge, which will be usable for making operational, tactical, and strategic decisions. And the fact that customer data should be informing all those decisions becomes important. Initially, when we start our careers out of IIM, let's say you will be more in the operational tactical domain, but your ability to say how it could inform strategic decision becomes important if you want to have a career progression to go and become a CEO eventually. And that is where these things become important. Now, how do you transform that? That really depends on the data at hand. So
sure, sir. So these insights would be very helpful to us when we start our careers in a year. So as you said, to think not just from operational perspective in the initial years, but to think from strategic perspectives if you aspire to take up that roles. So that's interesting, sir. Last question from our side, sir. What advice would you like to give to prospective higher studies aspirants in the field of marketing and those who want to pursue a career in academia after IIM Lucknow, sir?
Sure. So you have to be interested in academics if you want to. You have to be interested in research. So if you want a career in consulting or some other field, then I don't think PhD should be the route. I think an MBA from IIM Lucknow would prepare you enough that you can go down that path in some sense. But if you're interested in basically doing more foundational research, and that is because that is what you spend most of your time. You spend more time on that than you spend with your family or with any other individual or on any other thing per se. So because that is essentially what you do more or less 24/7 during your PhD years. PhD is a long process. It's a 5-year degree. It's not something that can happen in a year or two, and unless you're really interested in it, that is not something that you will succeed in. So if you enjoy it, if that is what you want to do, then you should do that. If you want to do that, then you should go and read papers in top tier journals that are published. So every business discipline, accounting, finance, marketing, strategy, operations, organization behavior, have about 3 to 4 top journals. So if you ask me, the biggest honor or I had in my career so far was being an editor of the editor-in-chief for 4 years, the term which ended in 2020, for Journal of Marketing Research, which is one of our top 4 journals. So this is like, think of it as an industry in which there are 4 dominating firms, and you get to be the CEO or you get to head one of those firms for 4 years. So to me, that was bigger honor than an individual paper winning a research award or being a finalist, which is fine, which is also good. But that is the pinnacle of the whole thing. So those are the journals in which we have to publish if you want to survive as an academic. Those are the journals that faculty in ISB have to publish. Those are the journals that faculty in University of North Carolina, Kenan-Flagler Business School have to publish to survive. Those are the journals that faculty in MIT, Harvard, Wharton have to publish to survive. Cornell, you can go down, Stanford, any school in the world, in Europe, London Business School, INSEAD, those are the journals that they need to publish for their faculty to basically have good careers. And it is important for you to publish in those journals. So if you are interested in academics, I would say go figure out which sub area. If it's operations, it is marketing, it is strategy, it is finance, accounting. Go look at the journals in that area. They are listed. There's a UT Dallas website which lists the top marketing journals in each area. There are 4 in marketing. There are whatever 3 or 4 in finance, which are listed there. See the articles which are getting published in those areas. They're available through IIM Lucknow libraries, and see if you're interested in doing those things. If you're interested in doing those things and that interests you more than, let's say, a career in practice with selling particular product or service or a hybrid combination of those, then that is what you should pursue. The key to success, at least in my mind, in an academic career, and which I think would be in a business career, is your ability to evolve, your ability to learn and change your knowledge base from time to time. The scholar I graduated in 1998, the research I did in 1998, which got into the top 10 journals then, and a little later than that, academic cycles are longer, 4, 5, 6 years sometimes. Those techniques, those methods will no longer make you successful today. In fact, I have evolved 4, 5, 6 times. I have become a different researcher over my career 5, 6 times in order to succeed as a researcher. And that becomes important, your ability to evolve, your ability to change, your ability to adapt, which I think is also consistent. And changing and adapting is a non-trivial exercise because you're spending time on your weekend or your spare time learning. And to me, the most fulfilling aspect of an academic career is that it gives me the time and the flexibility to learn through my life, essentially. And you know that I'm sure this is a cliche, that learning never ends, and that is true. Even today, I read a lot of books. I read many new methods which are related to statistics, mathematics, econometrics, economics, or conceptual thinking in sociology, psychology. So I read quite broadly in order to basically learn more and more. And that's how the nature is. That's what I enjoy. And if that's what you enjoy, then you will be successful in academic career.
Sure, sir. I think the task is cut out for the aspirants. They will have to invest some extra time,
Yeah, and tell them feel free to contact me if they want to, but yeah, that is what it'll take you. And I'll give you one more last thought, Hamdi, before we go. I've had 3 students actually, or maybe 4, who were IIM Lucknow MBAs who did their PhD under me. And Girish Malapragada, he's at Indiana University, a faculty member there. There is Gaurav Sabnis, he's a faculty member at Stevens Institute of Technology. Sanjay Puligada, he's a student in the Miami University at Ohio. And in our PhD program at UNC, we again have IIM Lucknow grad, Shweta Kaul. She's IIM Lucknow MBA, and she's just started. She's in her first year of the PhD program here now. So and I was the primary advisor to these 3 students who graduated, and they were all IIM Lucknow grads. So there has been some kind of a track. I think other IIMs have more students coming in when I was there, and that continues to be true. But yeah, that's a potential track, and there are examples of others who have come and succeeded. Vishal Narayanan, he was not my student. He did a PhD in Cornell. He's in NUS in Singapore now. He was IIM Lucknow. So there is a tradition there, and yeah, happy to help those folks.
So glad to know regarding the track, sir, and that's interesting. Hopefully, many more students will embark this path, sir.
Yeah.
And sir, with this, sir, we come to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for your valuable time, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sure this conversation will be fruitful to anyone who wants to learn regarding your career path, how you went on to academia, what type of research you are doing. Thank you again, sir, and we hope to
thank
hear
you
you again, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor and it's my privilege to connect with folks at IIM Lucknow.
Thank you, sir. Sir.